Crossing Lines with your hosts, Cindy Gomez-Schempp
and Duke Gomez-Schempp.
You're listening to 88.1 FM KPPPLP Fargo-Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. And you can find us on your radio dial here in the Fargo-Moorhead region at 88.1 FM. But you can also call in and leave a message. You can leave a 3-minute message at 701-566-0917. You can also tweet us at media_PPP, or you can email Cindy and Duke at cindyordukefm.com.
And don't forget to share this out to people. We're going to be playing this on the KPPP 88.1 FM radio in Fargo-Moorhead.
Today's topic is actually a very important topic having to do with our elections, having to do with the January 6th insurrection, having to do with the funding behind the people that organized the insurrection, and more importantly, having a lot to do with the Christo-fascist movements that are now infecting our body politic in America. The title of this article is Dominionism is on the ballot in November, but most voters have never even heard of it. Here at kpppfm.com, we pride ourselves in bringing you information that you will not hear in the mainstream media. This particular article comes to us from the Bucks County Beacon. The Bucks County Beacon, you can find it at thebuckscountybeacon.com for yourself. But you know, I did this before, Duke, with the articles by Native American author, actually a couple of authors, on The Wrong Kind of Green. Remember when I did that series?
Oh, yeah, I remember that series. It was great.
And I feel like people need sometimes to have things read to them, like story hours, so that they can take it in, because y'all are too busy to read all some of this stuff. I mean, it's pretty long.
I know. Then you get it read to you now. You can actually see it too and follow along.
Of course. That's right. You can follow us on our social medias. You can check us out by going on Facebook and looking for 88.1 FM Fargo-Moorhead. You can also search for the People's Press Project. And you can follow us on YouTube at Duke1517. You can follow us on Insta at Cindy Gomez-Schempp. And we're also on Twitch at...
That's right. Mexican Crossing Lines.
Yep. Well, this article, which is dated October 19th, 2022, is by Jennifer Cohen. You can find her on Twitter. She has been doing a deep dive on the Christian nationalist movements and who they're funded by and what they're connected to in this country. And again, the title is Dominionism is on the ballot in November, but most voters have never heard of it. Have you heard of Dominionism, Duke?
Not that term. I've heard of Dominion, but Dominionism?
You're thinking about the voting machine systems.
Yes.
This is an ideology in religion. Dominionism.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Has nothing to do with the voting machines. Okay?
Interesting.
Yes. It is from a New Apostolic Reformation. The New Apostolic Reformation is a religious movement in America.
Wow.
And it is a dominionist movement. And a lot of these people were more involved in the January 6th insurrection than is generally known.
Wow.
Here we go. Those of us who research right-wing extremism on social media had long ago seen the colorful map for the pro-Trump rallies at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. Remember these?
Oh, yeah.
Now, this map, it's very detailed. You can see all of the different areas where they're going to have the March for Trump, the Freedom Rally, the Wild Protest area, the Jericho March. All of this is listed on the map. And under the heading, Wild Protest, the map states that we, the people, must take to the U.S. Capitol lawn and steps. The map did not disclose that the Capitol steps and the parts of the lawn would be off limits to the public for everyone. But this is off limits to the public on January 6th. But in fact, those areas, they're generally off limits to everyone but lawmakers, as is shown on the U.S. Capitol Police website. Here is that image from the police website that demonstrates those same areas. The Capitol lawn, the Capitol steps, those areas are off limits. Maintaining a perimeter around the Capitol is a safety precaution implemented after September 11th. If you could keep it on that map, Duke, when I'm talking about the maps,
sure thing.
It would be great, because that way people can actually inspect them for a long time and take a look at the difference between the maps that were made for this march, the insurrection, and the map that was done for the police.
Good. Yes.
That designates that these areas are off limits, which is what I'm reading right now.
Gotcha.
And maintaining a perimeter around the Capitol has always been a safety precaution that is implemented since the attacks on our country on September 11th, when Islamic extremists attacked the United States. So, who created the map that was urging the public to violate a rule designed to protect lawmakers from terrorists? Here's a hint. It wasn't Islamic extremists. Earlier this month, Twitter researcher at NateDog155, aka Nate, showed that based on URLs, the map, the one that you're showing right now is the police map, the Capitol map, not the one that I'm referring to, which is the map that was done for the marches on January 6th. But according to a researcher on Twitter named NateDog, it shows that this map created for the event shows, based on URLs, the map appears to have been published by an internet marketer named Mercedes Sparks. NateDog also showed that this map was shared by Oath Keepers leader Stuart Rhodes on January 4th, another group called Latinos for Trump, Steve Bannon's War Room in his podcast, and by Sparks herself over Twitter. According to LinkedIn, Sparks, the creator of the map, is the vice president of operations of Lance Learning Group, and the company's president, Lance Wallnau, is an influential leader in the New Apostolic Reformation. Let's take a look at a picture published in this article of Mr. Wallnau. This is Lance Wallnau. The NAR is an aggressive worldwide movement that promotes 7 mountains dominionism, a belief that Christians have a mandate from God to control these 7 mountains of society. Number 1, business. Number 2, government. Number 3, family. Number 4, religion. Number 5, media. Number 6, education. And number 7, entertainment. Interesting. I'm going to read those to you again. Think about how this Christian group, a Christian extremist group, feels that they must have dominion over these areas of society: business, government, family, religion, media, education, and entertainment. Wallnau himself co-wrote a book titled Invading Babylon, The 7 Mountains Mandate. Wallnau is the author of this book, and in the introduction, of chapter 2 of his book, he states, how do we take over the world? We must have a strategy. Walnu, the author, he even owns the trademark for 7M. You know, like 3M?
Oh.
Yeah, except this is 7M for Seven Mountains Dominionism.
Oh, okay, I get it.
And as explained by religious dispatches of the NAR, it is driven by theocratic notions of total societal dominion. That doesn't sound very, it sounds scary.
No, it sounds really scary.
Total societal dominion, including the end of democracy as we've known it. That's a quote, Duke.
Wow, like end of the world.
The end of democracy.
Wow.
The end of American democracy. In July this year, during a Christian revival event inside a Georgia arena, which was packed, Walnow and 3 of his colleagues recited a hair-raising decree, which stated in part that, quote, whereas we have been given legal powers from heaven, we decree that our judicial system will issue rulings that are biblical and constitutional, and we decree that we take back and permanently control positions of influence and leadership in each of the 7 mountains. After viewing a clip of the recitation, which is available along with this article, the Beacon produced a series of investigative reports examining the National Apostolic Reform movement and its ties to the so-called Stop the Steal movement, which has doused the public with a fire hose of unfounded claims that former President Donald J. Trump lost the 2020 election due to widespread fraud. We featured Walnu in each of these 3 reports. We also discussed NAR apostle Jim Garlow, who conducted a pre-January 6 Stop the Steal inspired event called Global Prayer for Election Integrity, which included discussions with pro-Trump influencers such as disgraced retired Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, Steve Bannon, host of The War Room, Mike Lindell, CEO of the My Pillow Company, and Doug Mastriano, the Pennsylvania GOP gubernatorial candidate that recently lost his bid.
Oh, yeah.
And there is a tweet here from Bruce Wilson on July 26, 2022. Bruce Wilson tweeted, here's Peter Montgomery from May 11, 2021. This story is especially interesting because Montgomery says Mastriano participated in several of the NAR meetings called Global Prayer for U.S. Election Integrity. And it links to an article from rightwingwatch.org about Mastriano being part of these events of the global prayer. Intrigued by Nate's discovery about the January 6th map created by Mercedes Sparks, Walnew's employee, the Beacon reviewed Sparks's public YouTube channel. There, we found a video confirming that Sparks had indeed conceived of a map and created the map. And here is the tweet from Jennifer Cohen, article author that we are reading right now, of Mercedes Sparks' tweet with a video linked in it that you can see a still. And she is again the one who works for NAR Apostle Lance Walnow, a Seven Mountains Dominionist. And here in this video, she confirms she is the one who made that map for the rally of January 6th. During this video, which was filmed in Washington, D.C. on January 5th. You see a still image of that video and of Miss Sparks. She stated, and I quote, "Listen, I saw all these memes coming out. Like, everybody's got a meme. Millions of people are showing up. And I'm like, you guys, you can't have memes. How are people going to know where to go? This is crazy." So I took my entire Saturday making this map here. And she holds up a picture of the map we started this article with. Because I was like, we need a map. That's what we need. And she went on to say, I think we're going to have like 3 million people here, all the way from the ellipse down to the Capitol. It's going to be bananas. In addition, she mentioned that she had a friend, Steve, who said, who she said does all their events and is doing most of the events here in Washington, D.C., like a lot of the technical stuff, like consulting and assisting. So he's got a lot of the details, which of course went into that map that she was creating on January 5th. It didn't take long to find that Wallnow works with an event planner and producer named Steve Brown, who is president of a company called Resource Group Media out of Florida. And there is a couple of tweets here. The first tweet is, of course, our author, Jennifer Cohen, and she is tweeting that Steve is the Steve Brown of Resource Media in Florida, who does a lot of Lance Wallnow's Christian Revival events. And she shows embedded in her tweet a tweet by Stephen Brown, who says he's the social media, digital marketing, and events planning production person for an event that is in the poster in his tweet, where he is telling people to register for that event to join Mario Murillo and Lance Wallnow at the Hertz Arena in Estero, Florida on October 24 and 25. And there is a second tweet from @NateDog155, again of Steve Brown working with Lance Wallnow on his Seven Mountains Underground's election night coverage. NAR apostle Jim Garlow apparently knows Brown and Sparks too. In a reply to this Facebook post by Brown, displaying a photo of Sparks and Brown, Garlow responded, "These are awesome people." Here's the tweet by Steve Brown dated July 31st, where he says, "Meeting Katie Souza with friends, Larry Sparks and Mercedes Sparks in the green room at Flashpoint, Texas." And sure enough, underneath the picture is a response by Jim Garlow saying, "Awesome people." We soon found and confirmed a report that someone named Stephen Brown was listed as a person in charge and also as production manager on the permits for the December 20 Jericho March. Hear the Church Roar rally. In a tweet by @Dempsey2, it lists "destroy it completely." Yikes. The permit for Jericho March had 2 men listed as persons in charge on the permit. One is a guy named Rob Weaver. The other is Stephen Brown. Brown is also listed as the production manager. And here is a screenshot of that permit. And it highlights Stephen Brown's name, among others. That Jericho March was a high-profile event where Wallnow and other Christian extremist leaders shared a stage with Oath Keeper leader Stuart Rhodes and MAGA leaders including Michael Flynn, Ali Alexander, and Alex Jones. Brown also was the designated spokesperson, quote unquote, for a 50-person One Nation Under God rally to occur on January 6 in grassy area number 8. Here we are looking again at the map that the Capitol Police have on their website. This is the police map. And as you can see in area 8, which is at the top on the very left-hand side of this map, the grassy area number 8, per the permit and accompanying memorandum issued by Capitol Police, the permit application identified Steve Brown event planners as a point of contact and the spokesperson, according to page 7, and Steve Brown himself as the on-site contact, according to page 10. And in their application, which was signed by Stephen Brown on page 10, official notes for the permit state that Brown was working directly with Ali Alexander regarding the coordinating the One Nation Under God event, quote unquote, from page 14, and that Representative Mo Brooks and Representative Andy Biggs from Congress would speak at the rally alongside Ali Alexander. And that was on page 13. The notes also state that the Capitol Police warned Mr. Brown that his Area 8 event could not exceed 50 people due to safety concerns, and Brown assured them in a phone call that he had conveyed these restrictions to the group and that he, Brown, is a quote-unquote certified fire marshal and crowd management, so he understands why it is being asked for the numbers, that's 50 people or less, to be maintained. And that he wants everybody to comply to be able to have a safe event within regulations. This was on page 15. In addition, the notes stated that Brown was working on a plan that included Freedom Plaza, having the major speakers, and co-sponsoring the events at Freedom Plaza to have a longer event there. Also from page 15. That 50-person rally in Area 8 did not occur.
Really?
Nor did it make it onto that Sparks map that the woman did. The January 6th map that she gave everyone that was shared by Ali Alexander and Alex Jones and all those people. As discussed above, Sparks stated in her video that Brown was, quote, doing most of the events here in D.C., like a lot of the technical stuff, like consulting and assisting, so he's got a lot of the details, unquote. Brown did not, however, respond to the author of this article's request to discuss those details with the Beacon. Ali Alexander, a convicted felon who organized the Stop the Steal campaign, has refused to discuss Stop the Steal permits with the January 6th committee, claiming it would violate confidential clergy communications, not attorney privilege, clergy, religion. You know how when you go and confess to a Catholic priest?
Oh, yeah, it's totally like private.
And the priest can't tell anyone what you told them, even if you committed a crime? Yeah, that is what this Ali Alexander claimed about his communications regarding these rallies and their organization. And it has to do with this Dominionist National Apostolic Reformation religious movement That's why clergy is being brought up in this article,
Wow.
in this communication. But the email address for the Steve Brown that is on the permit matches the email address for Steve Brown of Resource Group Media, the event planner and producer who works with Wallnow and Sparks. Thus, despite Ali Alexander's obstruction, we have confirmed that that Steve Brown and Steve Brown are the same person. The matching emails were discovered and brought to our attention by extremism researcher at Vision Surreal. Brown also posted a live stream on January 6 itself, including footage of Alex Jones. The World Congress of Families. Brown's involvement with January 6 may be significant not only due to his involvement with the National Apostolic Reformation movement, but also because he attended a 2015 strategy session meeting for the Kremlin-linked World Congress of Families, a powerful international organization that has been called the main bridge between sanctioned Russian officials and American Christian fundamentalists. At the time, Brown worked for Brown and Hall events planners. He later moved to Resource Group Media, according to his LinkedIn profile. You can see World Congress of Families Strategy, Selection, and International Planning Committee meeting, a draft of the agenda dated March 17 through 19th that lists confirmed attendees: Brian Brown, National Organization for Marriage; Alexei Kormov, WCF's rep in Russia and CIS; and Steve Brown, Brown and Hall events planner. And also it lists at 9:15 a.m. International WCF event planners and quality assurance resource team, Steve Brown and Thomas Hall. The WCF is led by Brian Brown. No apparent familial relationship to Steve Brown, who co-runs the National Organization for Marriage, or NOM, with John Eastman. Yes, the lawyer John Eastman, that is currently being investigated for his part in the fake election scheme in Georgia.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the guy who had his phone taken from him by the FBI, that John Eastman. John Eastman, who was the former clerk of U.S. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas.
Oh, yes,
that
John Eastman.
John.
Yep.
Yeah.
Know the guy. Yep.
Yeah. He is the one that co-runs the NOM, National Organization for Marriage, with Brian Brown. And in 2020, Eastman tried to overturn the 2020 election with a legal theory that he knew was bunk, according to witness testimony. Back in 2015, Eastman supported a measure to criminalize homosexuality in Uganda. Do you remember that?
Wow.
Well, similarly, Brian Brown, who sits on the board of trustees for an organization called Citizen Go, which supports laws in Kenya that criminalize both homosexuality and abortion access. Citizen Go has sponsored the WCF. Again, the WCF stands for World Congress of Families. And this organization, according to this tweet by Citizen Go, has sponsored the WCF. In this tweet dated January 30th of 1920, Ann Kyoko is quoted saying, "It is a victory as Kenya refuses to be bullied at the United Nations by powerful countries and NGOs into legalizing homosexuality and abortion." The WCF has an official Moscow representative. His name is Alexei Komov, who also sits on Citizen Go's board of trustees. In other words, Citizen Go, which is influential in taking away the rights of Africans in Kenya and places like Uganda, both abortion and the rights of sexuality expression, are colluded with Russians, working with Russians, directed by Russians. Casey Mitchell tweeted, Alexei Komov hasn't been sanctioned yet, but he's a figure worth watching. He studied in the U.S., speaks fluent English and French. He works directly for Malofeev, and he is the main contact linking sanctioned Russian and far-right U.S. Christian fundamentalists, homeschool folks, etc. Komov is, quote unquote, the main link between U.S. Christian fundamentalists and sanctioned Russians, according to Think Progress. He is also reportedly tied to Steve Bannon through the Catholic group Dignitatis Humanae. Dignitatis Humanae. In 2014, Komov attended a NOM event in Washington, D.C., where he met then HUD Secretary Ben Carson, the event's keynote speaker. In the following tweet by Larry Jacobs, picturing Ben Carson, Alexei Komov, and another gentleman at a dinner in Washington, D.C. at the Willard Hotel, Larry Jacobs tweets, Alexei Komov and me chatting with Dr. Ben Carson at NOM Gala Dinner at Willard Hotel in Washington, D.C. Dated June 19, 2014. In addition, Komov is the employee and right hand of Konstantin Malofeev, a.k.a. Malofeev, a wealthy Russian politician and business owner more commonly known as the Orthodox oligarch, for his outward religiosity. According to Newsline magazine in 2014, Malofeev and Sean Hannity's former producer at Fox News, launched a Russian television station called Sarsgaard. Did you know any of this, dude?
No, wait, this is the deep state they're talking about.
Yeah. Sean Hannity's former Fox producer is doing a Russian television station called Sarsgaard with Malofeev, Konstantin Malofeev, this Russian Orthodox oligarch. The Department of Justice recently criminally indicted Malofeev for allegedly violating U.S. sanctions, which has been imposed due to his involvement in 2014's Russia invasion and annexation of Crimea, a peninsula along Ukraine's southern border. According to Bellingcat, Malofeev, quote, had once been of the initial ideologues and organizers of the annexation of Crimea, and had recruited, financed, and supervised at least two of the key on-the-ground Russian mercenaries and leaders of the separatists' insurgencies into eastern Ukraine. A tweet by right-wing liars on April 8, 2022 states, "The U.S. indicts God's oligarch, World Congress of Families funder Konstantin Malofeev. The U.S. Justice Department this week indicted Russian oligarch Konstantin Malofeev, a close ally of Russian dictator Vladimir Putin. Malofeev allegedly violated U.S. sanctions by hiring Kanik, who has been indicted as well, and by trying to access funds that he had invested in a Texas-based bank holding company in 2014. Malofeev's investment is noteworthy because in February of 2017, Ukrainian hacktivists leaked emails revealing that Malofeev was funding efforts to organize protests and support pro-Kremlin political groups in Central and Eastern Europe, as reported by the Alliance for Supporting Democracy. Malofeev's beneficiaries have included far-right political organizations in Poland and in Hungary, per the same Alliance report. Malofeev allegedly used a Belarusian middleman named Alexander Usovsky. In addition, New Line magazine reported in March this year that Malofeev had, quote, mediated an 11 million euro, that's $12 million, loan from Russian banks to Marine Le Pen's party. Remember Marine Le Pen that ran as a far-right figure for president of France?
Oh, yeah. Yes, I remember that.
Le Pen, according to a researcher at the International Center for Defense Studies, and Malofeev has reportedly funded the WCF as well. Moreover, Malofeev's employee, Kamov, was reportedly involved in a scheme to fund Matteo Salvini's far-right political party in Italy. Boy, they've got their finger in all the pies.
Yeah, definitely.
In 2014, Charles Bausman, a pro-Kremlin propagandist who lived in Pennsylvania before fleeing to Russia, asked Kamov to help him secure financial backing from Malofeev for his Russian insider opinion site, according to emails leaked by Anonymous International. And here is a tweet by Anton Sekotosov saying, Russia Insider's editor is begging for money from Russian oligarch Konstantin Malofeev via his associate Alexei Kamov. And then they show the actual email. Mm-hmm. And this was dated on November 21st of 2015. The question thus arises whether Malofeev may have provided financial assistance to far-right organizations in the U.S. In addition to the WCF's, Kamov has attended events held by an organization called the World Public Forum, including an event in 2013 as reported by extremism researcher Bruce Wilson. The WPF, World Public Forum, shown in a photograph below, was founded by Russian oligarch Vladimir Yakunin, one of Putin's closest allies at the time, and also Nicholas Papanikola, a Greek financier who once worked for the Onassis shipping empire, according to Wilson. Papanikolaou sits on the board of NAR-affiliated U.S. organization called the Oak Initiative, along with Wallnow, Steve Brown's client, NAR Apostle Jacobs, and Lieutenant General retired Jerry Boykin, as well as U.S. Congressional Representative Louis Gohmert, all involved with Oak Initiative. Here's a tweet of Louis Gohmert himself, dated February 27, 2017, 2015, excuse me, that says, sad not to be there in person because of late votes, but blessed to be able to Skype into the Oak Initiative Summit. The Oak Initiative Summit was founded by Rick Joyner, who promoted the idea of a military coup against Obama, as we discussed in a prior report. In 2014, he called for the formation of militias. That was the year that Moscow began forging a new role for itself at the helm of the global Christian right, according to Politico. In a tweet by Ramona Des de Ramona on Twitter, there is a Politico.com article titled How Russia Became the Leader of the Global Christian Right, and quotes from the article saying, in 2014, Moscow began forging a new role for itself at the helm of the global Christian right. That was dated July 26, 2017. The move was almost certainly strategic rather than faith-based. As observed by The Atlantic, quote, it is incredible, but a group of cynical, corrupt ex-KGB officers with access to vast quantities of illegal money, operating in a country with religious discrimination, extremely low church attendance, and a large Muslim minority, have somehow made themselves into the world's biggest promoters of quote-unquote Christian values opposing feminism, gay rights, and laws against domestic violence. This is an old geopolitical struggle disguised as a new culture war. Yakunin himself has acknowledged that, quote, this battle is used by Russia to restore its global position, unquote, The Atlantic added. In early 2015, the WCF held its Texas strategy session with Kamov, Steve Bannon, NAR leader Lance Walnew's event planner. Steve Brown. I get Brown and Bannon mixed up.
That's right.
Steve Brown. NAR leader Lance Walnew's event planner, and others. Later that year, NAR apostle Jim Garlow attended the WCF in Salt Lake City, Utah. Garlow also attended the 2017 WCF in Verona, Italy. The photo below is of Garlow at that WCF event in 2019. An estimated
20,000 people protested at the 2019 WCF. As reported by The Guardian, speakers included not only Garlow, but also John Eastman, if you can believe that. WCF 219 attendees also included Komov, another speaker, Pennsylvania resident Steve Turley, also a speaker, and then Pennsylvania resident Charles Bausman. We have previously reported on Turley, who interviewed Komanov at the WCF conference, filmed at least one Stop the Steal protest in Pennsylvania, and produced a film glorifying Mastriano. They have also reported on Bausman, who attended the same 2014 dinner at Moscow, as Flynn returned to Pennsylvania, where white nationalists held an event in his barn, and then fled back to Moscow after January 6. He's also the guy who sought funding from Malofeev and Karmanov.
Via Karmov.
Through Karmanov, yes.
And in January of 2022, Bausman published Turley's 2019 interview of Kamov on Russian Insider, which has also republished articles by Roger Stone.
Wow. Geez.
And here's from the Russian Insider, a tweet from January 15, 2022. Excellent interview with top Russian Christian conservative activist Alexei Kamov, Dr. Steve Turley. Giorgia Meloni, who recently won Italy's presidential election, attended the 2019 WCF as a speaker. Here's a tweet from Remy Bonney on September 25th, 2022. that says 1 year before the international LGBTQ plus lobby, World Congress of Families held a conference in the Italian city of Verona. Meloni has already preparatory meetings with its leader, Brian Brown. She was one of the driving forces to bring the conference to Italy. So did leader Brian Brown, who met with U.S. Supreme Court justices, so did WCF leader Brian Brown, who met with U.S. Supreme Court justices Samuel Alito and Brett Kavanaugh later that year. Here's a tweet of Ashton Pittman from 11/9/19, so that's November 9th, 2019, and it reads, "That man on the right is anti-LGBT hate leader Brian Brown. Photographed here meeting with U.S. Supreme Court Justices Kavanaugh and Alito. They decide whether people can be fired for being LGBT. Brown is heavily involved in Russia and supports anti-LGBT laws, which have proven deadly." And now on to Stop the Steal.
Oh boy.
In 2020, Trump lost his re-election bid, a result that most polls had already predicted prior to the election. On November 5th that year, as Trump's imminent defeat became clear, Roger Stone, who was close with Trump and with the Proud Boys leadership, called Michael Flynn to discuss the Stop the Steal campaign. The Stop the Steal premise reeked. For one thing, the GOP itself had blocked Democratic efforts to improve the security of the 2020 election. For another, they lacked credible evidence of widespread fraud. They ran with it anyway. Here are links showing their plans. The first from Jennifer Cohen, dated June 7, 2022, reads, "In December 2020, Roger Stone, resuscitated his suggestion Trump declare martial law and claimed to have seen incontrovertible evidence that North Korea had delivered ballots to Maine by boat. A geographically laughable claim. Notably, Stone never presented this evidence." In the second tweet, dated June 29, 2022, it states, Mastriano, a close ally of former President Trump, posted a tweet on November 27, 2020 that swapped primary and general election data, creating the false impression that more mail-in ballots had been counted than were sent out in Pennsylvania. It's been retweeted more than 30,000 times. The third tweet comes from Jennifer Cohen again, dated September 6, 2022, stating, Jenna Ellis used an edited video omitting election workers had themselves put unscanned ballots in containers under the table, which she misleadingly called suitcases, as they were preparing to go home. They retrieved them at Georgia Secretary of State called and told them to keep working. And finally, a tweet from James Surowicki, dated November 22, 2020, stating and retweeting a Rudy Giuliani tweet that said, Giuliani is still citing Russell Ramsland's error-riddled and long-since debunked affidavit, which mistook Minnesota for Michigan as evidence of fraud. I have no idea if Rudy is clueless or lying, but it doesn't matter. Nothing he says should be taken seriously. The decision to go on the offensive, facts be damned, could not have surprised anyone familiar with Stone's history. Refusing to concede defeat while launching counterattacks regardless of merit has long been Stone's modus operandi. And here's an example, a tweet from Jennifer Cohen about the so-called Stop the Steal campaign, which was and is a modus operandi, not a legitimate response to legitimate concerns about a specific election. And it shows a quote from Roger Stone that says, quote, "Admit nothing, deny everything, launch counterattack." Stone had used the same tactics during the 2000 presidential election, where he orchestrated a riot known as the Brooks Brothers Riot at an election office to stop the recount, as Republican George W. Bush's lead against Democrat Al Gore had dwindled down to less than 600 votes. Even Fox News host Tucker Carlson, a close friend of Stone, had said that Stone subverted democracy during the recount in 2000. So why not try again? In this tweet from Jennifer Cohen, she quotes Tucker Carlson, who not only introduced Roger Stone's book, Stone's Rules, but gleefully acknowledged in that introduction that Stone's work in 2000 involved, quote, subverting democracy, unquote. They screwed with the 2000 election in plain sight, and they still revel in it. Stone coined the Stop the Steal slogan in 2016 when it appeared Trump would lose. He and his protégés, including Ali Alexander and political operative Jack Posobiec, later used the slogan to oppose the Florida recount in 2018. Wallnow, who has celebrated Trump's decision to commute Stone's criminal sentence in July of 2020 on charges of perjury and witness harassment, jumped aboard the 2020 Stop the Steal train. In a video for his followers, he jovially referred to Stone and Flynn as Flintstone. During the December 2020 Jericho March, Hear the Church Roar rally in D.C., Wallnow shared a stage with Flynn, Alexander, Mike Lindell, Oath Keepers leader Stuart Rhodes, and others, and he also traveled to D.C. for January 6 itself. Wallnow must have made an attractive ally for the Stop the Steal campaign. He and other NAR leaders have expansive networks from their online ministries and megachurches. These networks could be used to recruit people to pack political rallies and protest. To give you an idea of how large a crowd they can attract, watch the video of their Christian revival event this July, this year, the one where Wallnow and his colleagues recited their Dominionist decree. The audience is massive. Sparks and Wallnow's VP explained this specific advantage, the NAR's ability to send crowds to rallies, back in November of 2020. In this still from a video of Mercedes Sparks that was tweeted by Nate Dogg 155, she is quoted as saying, "If you start planning, I'll start posting them, because what I have is access to get it out there. I have the ability to send people there. With the type of network I have and Lance Wallnow has, we can do that." Sparks herself made the map for January 6th, as we've already shown, while Wallnow's event planners and producer, Steve Brown, assisted Ali Alexander with the permits and the event production. Brown also promoted a supposed election integrity event featuring Ali Alexander on December 31st of 2020. You can see here from Resource Group Media their tweet on December 31st of 2020, a poster promoting that event. And on January 5th, Alexander gave a speech where he led the crowd in a chant of "Victory or Death." By then, Alexander had registered the website wildprotest.com. Like the map created by Ms. Sparks, the website had stated, "We must take the U.S. Capitol lawn and steps." Here's how that looked on the afternoon of January 6th. The first tweet here by Mark Carter shows a video of protesters storming the Capitol steps. In another tweet by In Minivan Hell, there is a picture of people, protesters, on the Capitol steps. that says Mike Pence just got rushed out of the Senate. Lockdown is in place. Protesters breach Capitol steps, with many more protesters heading to join in. Capitol Police are on the Senate floor. Capitol Police Officer Carolyn Edwards, who suffered a concussion during the riot, told January 6th committee that she had tried to hold the line at the Senate steps. Quote, "I was slipping in people's blood. I was catching people as they fell. It was carnage. It was chaos," she testified, adding that it felt like being in a battle. "I'm not combat trained. That day, it was just hours of hand-to-hand combat." In this other tweet by ABC News Politics, Cheney of the committee is speaking to Officer Caroline Edwards. Cheney asks, "You were knocked unconscious, is that right?" Capitol Police Officer Carolyn Edwards responds, "Yes, ma'am." But then, when you regained consciousness, Cheney asks, "Even with the injuries, you returned to duty, is that right?" Edwards responds, "Yes, ma'am. I tried to hold the line at the Senate steps." Another quotes Edwards as saying that she was slipping in people's blood and catching people as they fell. In short, the underreported New Apostolic Reformation was more involved in January 6th than is generally known. They work with MAGA leaders and politicians and have ties to the Kremlin-linked WCF through Steve Brown and through Garlow, and access to sprawling networks from their online ministries and megachurches. Their goal is to replace democracy with the Christian equivalent of Sharia law. According to Religion Dispatches, they have developed the political capacity to make these ambitions a lot less of a pipe dream than they seemed to 5 years ago. Dominionism is on the ballot, but most voters have never heard of it. Steve Brown, Lance Wallnau, shown here campaigning with Doug Mastriano, and Mercedes Sparks, did not respond to requests for comment in the making of this article. For reference, the author of this article, Jennifer Cohen, is an attorney, election integrity advocate, and political writer whose articles have appeared in the New York Review of Books, Who, What, Why, The Independent, TYT Investigates, The Brad Blog, and Salon. You can follow her on Twitter at Jenny Cohen #1. Thanks for listening to another episode of Mexican Crossing Lines with your host, Cindy Gomez-Schempp.
And Duke Gomez-Schempp.
You've been listening to 88.1 FM, KPPPLP Fargo Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. Good night. And God bless.